Let's see if it's live. Am I live? Let's see here. Check, check, check. Mic check. Mic check. Ooh, that's audio does not sound cute. Ooh, that's audio does not sound cute. Audio does not sound cute. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Why are we getting a delay? 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 My audio's going insane. Give me 1 second, man. My audio's going insane. Give me 1 second, man. My audio's going insane. See if my audio's crazy on this one too. See if my audio's crazy on this one too. Man, I gotta figure out what's wrong with the audio. Figure out what's wrong. 1 second. echoing. Like 12 echoes. Okay. For some reason I'm having some strange noise. Still a bull market for now. Okay, I'm trying to figure out this audio. Is it still echoing? Can you let me know? Put this fan on, but it's loud. Is it still echoing? A 1992. Is it still echoing for you? No echo? Thank the Lord. Maybe it was just I had it. Your audio's still not working. Huh. Let me see what my comrades are telling me. Okay, no echo. That's good. I can hear you. Oh, perfect. Maybe it's because I had the audio on my computer while I was doing it. Okay, let's cover Wish. Now that we have this figured out, let's do this thing. Okay, so it's better now. Sweet. Okay, so Wish is a weird one, and the reason is I love the company. Technically speaking, not technically, but like I like the business model. I think they have a lot of potential. The only issue is it's got caught in this freaking meme stock short squeeze nonsense that I think has been kind of happening to a lot of legitimate companies, which is really unfortunate. Companies that I think are still kind of stuck in this. You're seeing all my past searches. No need to look at that. But it's kind of got stuck in this short squeeze kind of BS. Let me look at market beats. Let's look at some of the fundamentals of institutions and stuff like that. So that's the only reason I don't like it. We talked about Root last week too, you know, and I'm happy you got saved with that stop loss because it did pull back some, but it's hard because there's this craziness that's happening in the market where things are getting short squeezed, and then some of them sell off, some of them are staying up. Like Root pulled back in the week, and then it ended up, you know, now it went back to 11.4, or that's his Wish. Then it kind of stopped going down, and so it's hard to tell what's going to be happening with these short squeezes moving forward. Obviously, the market went right at the end of the week, so that's going to damper down some of the retail meme traders and short squeezes, maybe for the time being. And so that's the only negative I have on Wish for the short term. Institutionally, they have a lot of backing. Let's look. Yeah, recently, like, I think I was looking at Wish this week too. Like, someone just made almost $1 billion investment. That's a great sign. So they have some really big buys over the last month. Doesn't mean it can't go lower in the short term, but as a long-term buy, this looks better than some other companies that I've seen. Don't want to be a millionaire, or whatever that thing was. I do want to be a millionaire, but not from that link that I pushed on. So yeah, so it's unfortunate that it's kind of become a short squeeze meme name. The company I think is cool. Let's look at their sales and stuff like that. I think the concept of the company I like. You know, it's kind of it's just a marketplace for buying a bunch of cheap goods, and people scroll on there forever, and they have a really great engagement. But kind of like a lot of these companies, I guess their last quarter burn wasn't as bad, but like when I see numbers like this, Like obviously what this tells me is they spent a lot on advertising around Christmas. Um, is kind of what that tells me. So basically, they're having to pay for some of the growth there. This last quarter looks a little bit better, not as much cash burn, but for making almost $1 billion a quarter and still not making money is a little worrisome for these kind of companies. Um, that's some of the negatives I would say on the fundamentals of the company. What's their valuation at? They're valued at $7 billion. Their annual is about $3 billion. It looks like that's going to be going up in 2021 as well, based on their last quarter. They might be like a $4 billion company this year if the same trend starts as Q1 did. So I like them long term. Short term, they've just been kind of these freaking meme stalkers and these short squeezers is kind of messing up the chart. Because that's why you see this push here in the stock is from the short squeeze, because they were a high short squeeze name. But we can run a little technical analysis on it, just to kind of see what we want to look out for. So there was a gap fill back here on the short squeeze. It filled the gap. We can see if there's any more gaps. No more gaps on the chart, so people won't be looking for another gap push. If you have questions while I'm talking about this, feel free to ask me, please. Your interaction's helpful. If I look at some support and resistance, so it looks like we have some support and resistance around here. Plume, that's going over my head. Sorry, 92. But it looks like it's pretty close to like a pretty important resistance point. And so when we look at this chart a little more in depth, so we kind of want to look for this price of accumulation is what I would call it. And we kind of had a lot of accumulation in this range right here. And where we see the prices, when it came back on this big red candle right here, it came back into that area of resistance. Obviously we have like a direct kind of range around this 1550, but it couldn't break out over that. So we'll have to see on the short term. We can zoom in a little bit and kind of see how things are looking. So RSI 50, so it could still do with a little bit more upside. On the MACD, let me bring this down, this is too big. On the MACD, we're still negative, or we just broke above zero maybe. We just broke above zero, so we'll have to see if that's a confirmation for a trend reversal or not. I think this week in the market's going to be really telling what happens. Obviously, we had a crazy red day on the SPY, basically Thursday and Friday, and a lot of volatility. And then the NASDAQ, which is probably what these kind of stocks are going to move off of more of. The wish is going to more follow the NASDAQ and how its price action is. And so if we have a red week in the NASDAQ, we could definitely see this pull back more. But some positives, MACD just went positive on the daily. That's a great sign. RSI is elevated, but it could still be higher, so it's leaving some space for it to run. It's still quite a bit away from overbought. And we have this trend line right here. So again, we have a lot of accumulation that's happening right now. So what this accumulation, actually, let's do a couple things first. So the first thing we want to look at is see where it gapped down on this chart. So ironically so, it held up well it held up pretty well for the market tanking. I think Root did a similar thing. Well, it held up decently well. I think Root's pattern looks really similar to this, if I remember correctly. We can look at that in a minute, but it looks really similar to this, where you have one big green day, a second day that ended up turning red because of all the selling, and then some accumulation. So what we see is where the stock kind of gapped down earlier. The stock is now accumulating where that gap down was, and because that's a very important price range, is where the stock gap down. So it's gonna have to make a decision soon on what it wants to do next. We can see if we have a triangle forming here. Let me see. I don't think we do, but no. You can see if there's a bigger triangle. I mean, there's a possibility for a triangle starting. Let's go on the 4 hour to see if that triangle is confirmed. No. We might have a triangle here, so you might want to watch for a breakout on, looks like tomorrow is going to be the breakout day, where it's going to choose this triangle direction. So that's probably going to be very important. If it breaks to the upside or the downside out of this quasi triangle, I guess I would call it. It's not necessarily the perfect triangle, but it's a quasi triangle. So yeah, do you think the strong volume is a positive? I think Wish has a I think volume always matters. I think yeah. I mean, Wish is a bigger name. When did it IPO? It IPO'd a little later than Root did. But Wish is a much more known name. A lot of people know the name. They had a lot of hype when I don't remember when it was. Probably like a year or two ago. I think when Wish, maybe it was last year. I remember they got a lot of hype. I was hearing about it from everybody. It was like this app that you go on and they sell really cheap things, and it was popular for basically all these girls going on there and buying tens of 20s of things for like $1 or $2 each. And so they have a lot of popularity as a company, and they obviously have much stronger earnings than Root. Not stronger earnings, but stronger revenue. And so people love, I would say any name that's like in this $1 billion revenue range right now has a lot of volume. So it's like the XPEVs. Welcome back, Holmes. Good to see you here again. So the XPEVs of the world, I think WishKey, you can even throw it in that range, where these companies that are really seeing a lot of revenue growth, but they're still not making net income. So there's a lot of popularity around them. So I think volume's important, obviously this increase, but you kind of have to, in a strange way, you have to disregard these few days of really big volume, mostly because it was just a short squeeze. So people are looking at this stock right now, which is important. So for me, that just is going to create a potential for more volatility. Seeing obviously the volume drop off more and more, like, this is not a technical thing, but just like looking at the volume drop, like the volume's headed downwards. So if we see these days pick up as big green days, this stock could definitely push higher. But we would need a really big green day to see it move higher. And I would say look for this triangle as a potential breakout point on Monday. I think that's going to be pretty telling, to kind of see what it does and see if it confirms, because it could break out and shoot back down, but you need a confirmation. So if you're looking at a 4 hour chart, one 4 hour candle breakout, then you'll need a second 4 hour breakout. Lots of rumors Cramer will pump Monday. I mean, who knows? But Cramer actually said a bad thing about it. So he talked about it, I think, on Friday or Thursday. He basically said it was like a pump. It was a meme name, basically. It was like a pump and dump, or it was a short squeeze name. So we could look at the short interest, see if we can find any data on that. Let me see. Let me find a site for Wish short interest. Let's go here. Let's open up FinBiz too. I always miss him over the weekends. Cramer's very entertaining. I agree with you. He's a fun guy to listen to. I'm definitely on the same page. So this short float is pretty low. Let me see if I find another site with better data. It's been dropping. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely overvalued in its IPO. I mean, the company is not at a stage where it should have been valued at 30 million or whatever it was at IPO price. I think at 8 billion or 30 billion, I think 8 billion is a little bit more reasonable. I still think that's pretty not reasonable for where the stock is in its in the journey of the stock. But where is this? Is this short interest? Okay, we can go. Let me switch over. I got a little bit of short interest on this. I don't know how telling this is, but it says short interest here is about 15%. Let's see what this market beat's always delayed on the short interest. What up, London? Appreciate you stopping through. Love London. What up, my guy? I'm not sure. So you have somewhat elevated. This short interest is all the way back in May, so it's kind of hard to tell. That's kind of a long time ago, so it could change quite a bit. Hello, fellow ape. Lol. Hilarious. So what is this? So 15% is a decent. Obviously, you can see the short squeeze that happened definitely pushed the short interest down. So it was somewhere around the 26 to 30 range back when that short squeeze happened. And now the short volume is pushed down to 15%. So it's much lower. 15% is still pretty high, but it's not going to have as much wild movement as it did prior because the short interest is lower. So that's just, I think, something to pay attention to. This is a site I actually always use for short interest, is Fintel, whatever it is. I think they have pretty decent data on short volume. So yeah, so not going to have as much short squeeze potential because of short volume down. Board now. Let's go, boys. Who's spamming? Oh. You know, you gotta hustle. You gotta do what you gotta do, man. I can't comment on your stream, but that is not short interest. It's short volume, which is different. Gotcha. Thanks for that. Shout out, Joker. Let me look at that side again. Oh, short volume ratio, yeah. It's the view. There's a site. This is a site that typically has a better. I guess this is short volume ratio. Anyway, thanks for that call out, Joker, if you're in the chat. But the main thing to call out here is the short volume ratio has decreased. 100 million volume back to back days and still can't hold above 12. Yeah. The main point here is short volume ratio has decreased quite a bit. So there's going to be less short squeeze upwards, is what I'm thinking. I think if I went to, I don't know how accurate Finviz is. Finviz says only 6% short interest, but I think this is probably outdated from Finviz. But yeah, I know some of you might be joining just now. Thanks for everyone here. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. If you can follow the stream, that'd be awesome. I'm here every Sunday night going through the technicals of all the charts, whatever you guys want me to cover. I cover every Sunday night and go through the technicals and the fundamentals of the company. So Mr. 92, if he's still here, brought up Wish because he wishes his stock will go higher. Bada boom. But yeah, these are some of the technical analysis. Okay, this is the same thing I saw in Rootstock. This is crazy. So Rootstock was also a short squeeze name, and so this was exactly the same trend line I saw. Is if you put the trend line from the top price to the next candle, back here on the short squeeze, the candle perfectly hit the top of the trend line. So that's a bearish. That's not a very positive sign for the stock. 100 million volume can't get above 12. That's pretty crazy. I agree with you on that. So, yeah, so as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you just jump in the stream, it needs to jump above make this little janky triangle, sideways triangle. That's what it needs to break above. So we have this breakout above or we have this break below above the gap. It filled the gap, and now it's just consolidating around where it gap filled. So Monday is going to be a very telling sign for this. As I mentioned earlier, if you just joined, if NASDAQ's red, this is probably going to be red for the most part. There's a high probability it will be red as well. And if it breaks below this triangle, a lot of the potential upward mobility probably is going to get yanked from it as it breaks that technical triangle. So yeah, but we'll have to see. Who knows what next week's going to look like. Pay safe. I think I mentioned this on the last stream. Nate, you in here? Are you posting in StockTwits? Well, I'm losing my voice, so let me get some water real quick. I'll be right back. This is why I use more than half of my shares to sell covered calls. Yeah, definitely need to set yourself up for success on these high volatility names. And so yeah, when you get these little potential triangles, you can definitely try to set yourself up for success if it breaks. 1 second, guys. Okay, I'm back. Yep. Yep, options on both sides, exactly. So obviously it breaks the downside. You have you don't really care what way it moves, but whatever way it doesn't move, you're basically closing out of that option, and then you're writing it the correct way, or you're writing it the way that you're making money. To put it simply. Okay, let's look at PaySafe. Let's just start drawing some trend lines. So yeah, this is a stock I like quite a bit as well. Let me see if my partner in crime, Nate Dogg, is spamming. Nope, not yet. Okay, I'll spam first. Gotta spam the StockTwits, man. I'm trying to get you guys some value, so I gotta get you over to the stream somehow. And DMA, thanks for subbing. I saw that from you, so I really appreciate, or not subbing, but following. Really appreciate that. Second, everybody. I got my magical water that's coming my way. Okay, PaySafe. This is a company I really like. Let me actually jump to what the company does first, so you guys have an idea of what this company is. I'm drinking coconut water right now. Bro, coconut water sounds... You know what, man? Maybe I should start bringing coconut water. I always get like a little bit of horsey throat on Sundays when I'm talking for an hour or two straight. And so I think some coconut water is a good call. I'm drinking margarita. That sounds more delicious. Margaritas. Zip for me. That's next level. I mean, nothing like drinking some margaritas and doing some technical analysis. You know what I'm saying? But to cover PaySafe, so PaySafe is basically like a company that runs transactions for companies, kind of like Fortnite. So when you're trying to, if you play Fortnite, if you're a Fortnite kid and you're making a purchase, like PaySafe is maybe the person in the back working that transaction for you. So PaySafe does that all over the place, not just for Fortnite, but that's just a really quick synopsis of what they do. And so I really like this company. They were a reverse merger for a SPAC. They're still probably overvalued quite a bit, but it's a long-term hold for me. Um, if it goes to $5, like I'm just gonna buy more because I really like this company. And so if we look at some of the numbers, let's see annually. So annually they're about 2 billion. As gaming gets legalized, yeah, big potential. I agree. Um, yeah, they're trying to do a lot. They're trying to create their own wallets. You know, their online wallets. They're doing a lot of stuff. If it goes to 5, you better sell cash covered puts. I don't trade options very often or very much. I've just have gotten used to buying shares, and that's kind of has been my strategy. But yeah, I like this company, but kind of similar to Wish, it's that whole problem of these companies that have a lot of revenue, but their net income is negative. So that's always not the best sign for these companies because that basically just tells you that they're having to either advertise a lot or they have a lot of back end costs that are causing them not to be profitable. They could be making investments, a lot of investments to grow, which would be causing that lack of returns. But that's the only negative I would say for this company. I think they have a lot of potential, but that's just a gut call on this company, not necessarily. I don't know where they're going to be headed, but I think that they'll continue to grow as gaming gets bigger. I think that's a big part, as well as digital wallets, which is what they're kind of getting into as well. So yeah, this is just the main issue is this negative net income. But if we go to the technicals, let's jump over, get this fancy transition, whatever sound effect it's making. Sorry if I blew your eardrums out. So at the technicals, obviously it's in a downtrend, back from over at $15. So why is this chart? Let me go to the daily. I need to back this thing up a little bit. There we go. That's the chart I was looking for. So it's a reverse merger SPAC call. So I think you see back when SPACs sold off real hard, it basically came back to this consolidation zone when it first got announced that this was the company that the SPAC was choosing, and it's had this giant arc and basically has come back down. So not a great sign, but this is definitely a long-term play. I wouldn't trade this personally. I wouldn't hold it for a couple months. If you're gonna buy this, you might as well just be a long-term holder of it. And that's just my opinion. But let's just draw a couple things on the daily to figure out. So not so great that we've broke below this downward trend line. Not the greatest. We did close this gap from back when it reverse merged. It got announced. But yeah, it basically peaked up at $19 a share and has come back down to $11. So not the best scenario, but it just looks like a lot of volatility. This chart's really funky to read because it's just up and down, up and down. But that's what was happening with a lot of SPACs, is just the up and down as the SPAC hype started dying off quite a bit. So yeah, like I said, long-term hold. But in the short term, a couple positives here. The first positive, we just see RSI is pretty low. So is it blurry for everyone or just me? Let me see if I can. It might just be my internet going in and out. Let me see. I don't think I can bust the. Let me zoom in a little bit. Maybe you can see it easier. There we go. I didn't need to be zoomed out that much. Yeah, is it blurry for anyone else? Let me know. But as you can see from this trend line, it's in a downward action. I can definitely see this consolidating, but if it sells off, if the market continues to sell off, this one can definitely go lower, just because it is a pretty high valuation. It's $8 billion valuation, 2 billion yearly revenue. So it's definitely trading at a premium based on its revenue, and extreme premium because they don't make any money yet as a company. So those are the fundamental cons. Something else I actually want to jump to now that I remember is one of the reasons I'm really bullish on it for the long term is the institutional ownership. So institutional ownership is always something that when I'm thinking about my long-term buys, because if I want to hold something for a couple years, I want to make sure that the big boys are also down to hold it. And so I would say that's the biggest positive, as this could be a long-term buy. So one of the things on this big pullback in tech that I've been seeing is I've been looking into the tech names that sold off significantly that institutions have been pouring into. So Paysafe is one of them. I talked about it last Sunday as well. It's CPNG, which is basically like the Amazon of South Korea. They have like 8 billion in institutional buying this last quarter as well. For the children. I like that, Holmes. For the children. That should be a good we got to get that voice overlay eventually. I like that. That would be a good one. But if you're here in the chat right now, we would love a follow support. If you're finding anything here valuable to you, would love the quick follow. But back to Paysafe. One reason I like it long term is because of the institutional buying this last quarter. So as it's sold off from 19, basically in a couple months, to $11, some institutions thought it was a great idea to buy some, and that's been more recently over the last month. So 71 million, 125 million. These are the kind of buys I like to see. You know, I say it all the time in my videos on my YouTube channel. If you haven't been there, it's Chill Deal Trades on YouTube, where I do all my technical and fundamental analysis on stocks and the stock market. But I like when there's these big buys, because if someone's willing to put 100 million, 200 million, 30 million into a stock, that shows a little bit of conviction. You know, it's not like a $1 million investment. This is a decent amount of money that you're putting into something that's pretty speculative. And so seeing $4 billion put into it is a good long-term sign for me personally. We can break down the technicals a little bit more. Any questions? Just say something in the chat about this stock, or if there's any other stocks you want me to cover, please write them in the chat, and I'll move on to something else if it comes up. But positives here, RSI is pretty low, which tells me that there's opportunity for this to run if it gets volume. If we look at the chart, in order for it to get out of a bearish scenario, it looks like it needs to break above, this is on the daily, it needs to break above about a 48 RSI on the daily. So when something turns bearish for a stock, you typically see RSI come up to a certain point and come back down, and it has a hard time of breaking above that RSI level. And so what you basically see is since it peaked and it came down, it hasn't really been able to break above that 48. I think it's 48, yeah, 48 on the RSI. So if we see this get some volume and break up above and hold above 488 and kind of trading in this channel in the upwards, the stock could definitely head higher. So that's something I would look for. MACD is not really telling me much. Actually, I meant to put a 200-day. Actually, the stock hasn't even been here for 200 days. Let's put a 50-day. So 50-day, stock's below the 50-day. The 50-day is curving downwards, which is not a good sign, technically speaking. When you see any SMAs or EMAs, whatever, kind of have this downward slope, that basically is a sign that the stock is going lower. If we start seeing this angle of the 50-day kind of start curling out flat like this, then that's probably kind of showing a bottoming pattern. And then if it breaks above the 50-day, and we see the RSI go above 48, those would be all positive signs. The MACD is, just below 0. So if we see that turquoise line kind of stay above the yellow line and go back positive, that would be another positive indicator. So I'd say this stock is probably on the verge of making a decision based on what I can see. And we're just gonna have to see probably over the next month. This stock might just consolidate a little longer. Like if we find like a middle range, it's basically been consolidating in this range. That's a little off, but consolidating in this range since for the last month. So there's definitely a chance for it just to stay here for the next month. But anybody else in the chat, do they have any questions for more stocks? Is my mic still working? Can everybody hear me? Oh, you know what's wild? My audio from my microphone's not even on. What audio is being picked up? Shoot, that's what's going on. I was trying to figure out what's going on here. Yeah, we hear you, dude. DMI. Well, I bought this fancy ass Yeti mic, and I'm not even using it right now. I think it's my computer audio. So, Alexa. So, DMI, you have any, or DMA? Do you have any stocks you want me to cover? I'm here to serve. So if you have any stocks, please let me know. SPY. Oh yeah, I can do SPY. So I actually kind of covered SPY in the video I did on Chill Deal Trades YouTube channel. Go check that out and follow. I kind of covered Murray's kind of things about the stock market tanking and kind of where I saw that, kind of saw the SPY moving over the next few months. And so yeah, I can definitely cover. I'll kind of just cover what I did in the video a little bit too. So this is the thing about using trade views. I only have so many indicators that I can pop up at once. Let's get rid of the MACD because I don't really care that much about it. Let's go moving average. So first let's do, actually it doesn't really matter what I do on the weekly, but let's do, yeah, it's trading below the 50-day, which is not a great sign. Actually, we'll start on the daily. So yeah, so definitely not a positive sign that it broke below the 50-day. Let me change one of these to the 50-day so we have context. So it's not good that it's trading below the 50-day. We've seen the stock, we've seen SPY trade below the 50-day before, so that's not necessarily a bad sign because we've seen it go below and still be okay. So it really just, we're going to need a confirmation of what's next. Saw some folks with trend lines and shit on Twitter predicting 380. Yeah, so I would suggest, I would go watch that Michael Murray video I made on Chill Deal Trades. It's like 15 minutes, but I kind of cover really, I would say, a lot of macro things that are happening in the economy with the Fed and kind of the pros and cons for a pullback or moving higher. And I also broke down the SPY chart of where my price predictions are, but I'll cover that a little bit here too. So kind of some of the charts that I've been talking about in the SPY lately is we were in this ascending triangle. So this was something I was watching for a while to see if this stock would come up and test the top of that ascending triangle or not. So typically when you have a triangle, you want, ooh, I get to bust out the Sharpie. Typically when you see, hey Isaiah, thanks for popping in, man. Typically when you see any kind of triangle formation or even channel, whatever it is, you typically want to see a top, a bottom, a top, a bottom, a top, a bottom, kind of like that. That the stock went, it's not a great sign, or it's not as good of a sign that it didn't follow that trend line. Bruh. One second, y'all. Get this damn artwork off here. So it's not as a good sign that it went like this, and it didn't touch the top and it broke below. So we're gonna need a confirmation tomorrow, on Monday, of what's gonna happen. If it breaks above this trend line, then we're back in the ascending triangle pattern. If we get, basically, sometimes what also happens is you'll see a breakdown of a trend line, then you'll see it come back and test the bottom of that trend line. And if it does that, that's probably leading to more downside. And so that's, let me switch this to 200 days. So this kind of brings me to my next point of where I think some potential price targets could be. So I'm sleeping J-Powell tonight, so stock. That's funny. I need to get a J-Powell t-shirt. Ooh, we should make that for the stream, Nate. We should make J-Powell t-shirts. Like, thanks for that. I'll give you a royalty on that, DMA, for that idea. That's a good idea for a t-shirt. So this is probably what you've seen a lot of people talk about, is this gap fill. I thought you were talking about PaySafe. Oh yeah, we just finished up PaySafe. Give me your bull case, lol. I'll give it to you in 3 seconds, but I'll go back to PaySafe after we cover the SPY as well. But bull cases, great company. I think they have a lot of potential in the payment place, specifically with gaming and digital wallets. The con is their valuation is $8 billion and they make $2 billion in revenue, and they haven't seen that much of growth over the last couple of years, so they're going to need some fundamentals of the business to start growing significantly to make it worth $8 billion. Technically speaking, it's kind of in this consolidation time, so it's going to be making a decision soon, and so we're going to have to see if it can break out of this consolidation or not. But Kroos, I'll come back after I cover the SPY. DMA and the J-Powell t-shirt told me to asked me to cover it, so let me get to this first. But this is important because if we see the market breakdown next week, potentially PaySafe could go a little bit lower. But to go back to this is the main thing people have been talking about, is this gap fill. So whenever you see a chart and you see a gap, I would say 9 times out of 10, the stock needs to go back and fill that gap. So we use examples here. We have a gap fill right here, gap fill right here. Is this the daily? Okay, yeah. So we have gap fills here. That's a pretty low, that's 330. Maybe it'll come back and test that. We'll have to find out. Shoot, did not want to draw that. You think it's been under a short attack or big money or load up? Yeah, so go to market beat, type in PSFE, and then go to institutional ownership. Institutions have bought about $4 billion of stock in the last quarter, so that's something I always look at for my long-term holds, and that's why I'm still holding PaySafe, is because institutions have loaded up quite a bit. But yeah, so stocks typically fill a gap once they make them, and so this is what a lot of people have been talking about, is this gap fill at around 400. So I think in the short term, there's a possibility to get to this 400. I'm not sure if this is the pullback that's going to get to 400. I think the market's going to have a bigger correction towards the end of July, and I think we have a potential of touching the 200-day. I don't know if it will get that low, but a couple ranges that I think the stock could push back to is, the first one is 400 if we continue to break below this trend line. Because if we break below the bullish trend line, then we have a bearish trend line forming, which is right here. But one thing that everybody should know is, the steeper the curve, the less realistic it is for that stock to hold that trend line. So like you can see in the SPY back in the day, like they had this crazy trend line. SPY was never going to hold that 65, 70 degree angle trend line. The stock has to go parabolic for it to hold that trend line. And so when we're using this as an example, this is like, what's that angle? It's like a 50, 60 degree angle maybe. It's just a little too steep. So I think eventually we're going to need this to pop back up and create a less aggressive trend line. I would say something more like this if we're going to see a more downward movement in the long term. But until we form maybe this 45 degree angle heading downwards, we're just going to have small corrections. And in my opinion, I don't think the stock market's going to go lower for a while in terms of like a large crash or correction. And I talk about that in the YouTube video I posted today on Chill Yield Trades, kind of my outlook both in the short term and the long term. I'm kind of talking about macroeconomics and stuff like that. So we'll have to see if this confirms next week, and if so, we could definitely see some more downward movement. But a couple important things to show here. I'm about to watch the YouTube. I'm about to watch the. You send me after the stream. You sent me after the stream. Gotcha. Cool. Thanks for watching that. It actually got pretty good traction so far, which is pretty crazy. I had a Ford video that did pretty well. It got like 300-400 views, or 200-300 views, and then this Michael Burry video. I don't know what I'm at now, but I was at like 100 views. Yeah, I'm at 100 views, which is pretty crazy. So love the support on there if you want to go watch that. Some bitch ass put a thumbs down at the first person. I hate when people put thumbs down on videos, just straight haters. Market Beat. It's called Market Beat. Dropped a like on YouTube. Brad DMA, you the man. Drop a sub too. Be a real one. But yeah, so short term 400 is a potential price range. But we're coming up on some significant support, and we'll have to see if the SPY can hold that. So you can see about right here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candles of support basically. Yeah, Fintel's also a really great site. I use Fintel. Did you just write? Yeah, I think you just wrote Fintel. I use Fintel if I need to check what just happened. I use Market Beat to see a really clean view because it's much easier to see the institutional buying on Market Beat. Fintel kind of has like spotty information. Sometimes they show you stuff, sometimes they don't. But Market Beat, even though they're delayed quite a bit, they're usually delayed by like 2 to 4 weeks on the institutional buying. But their look is way easier to see and kind of analyze who's buying and who's selling. But for the SPY, we have pretty big resistance around 410, so I think that's going to be a really important part coming into this next week. So definitely look for that. Because what you can see is like, I keep talking about these consolidation ranges, but there's a ton of consolidation in this range when the market couldn't figure out if it wanted to break out or break lower. And so we're heading back into that consolidation range. And so we'll have to see if this holds this kind of bottomish range right here. If it breaks below that 410, then we're going to want to watch for this next range. I would say around 405-ish. It's like 405 to 403. I would say 403 to 407 would be the next range if it breaks below 410. And then if we really do see that much downward momentum, then I would almost confirm that we're going to fill that gap if it does pull back that much. So yeah, those are the price targets. 410 this week. We'll see if it can hold. If it gets that low, 405-ish, and then 400 are the short-term price targets. And we also have the 100 SMA. It looks like at like 403. And it's starting to curl, so it's going to stop some of its upward momentum a little bit. But it could potentially move up higher to this 405, so you have the 100-day and a support line at about 405 to 403. Actually, the trend line is at, look at that. Look how the universe works sometimes with these charting. This is why I love charting. It's just facts. The bottom of this candle is basically where the 100-day is. So there's going to be there's a lot of support here. There's going to be a lot of support at 405. And if somehow it decides to break below, then definitely 400 is the range I would be looking at. If we look at the RSI, so I mentioned it on PaySafe, but something that we see with this as well is unless the stock break below a 41 or 40 on RSI, it's still in an uptrend. As you can see, like there's not going to, or sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not going to be more than maybe a 3 to 5% pullback if it doesn't break below 40. So when we go back in all the times that the RSI got to 40, we see anywhere to a 3 to 5% pullback at max. So right here, we hit a high of 422. Let me do some math on my phone. 422 to 404. Let's do some mathematics. Yeah, so it had a 4% pullback, and it held below that. It held above 41 on RSI. Same thing back here. This was about a 4 to 5% pullback here as well, from 393 to 372. That was about a 4 to 5% pullback. So if we do see RSI break below that, we could have a little more significant of a pullback. You know, it could be more than 3 to 5%. Could have a little bit more, but it needs to break below this on the RSI reading. That's going to be really important to see if this breaks out more or breaks down further. In the long term, I personally think we need a correction in the market, and I say this in the video I uploaded on Chill Deal Trades, is for the market to go higher, it needs a correction. Because basically what a correction does, you have to think about it psychologically speaking, is any significant move upwards or downwards gets the attention of people, and when it gets the attention of people, people start buying and selling things, and that increases volume, and volume gets more eyes on things. So we definitely need a correction. I would say somewhere around 10%, which I think is around the 200-day. Let's do some more mathematics. Nate, that needs to be another thing, more mathematics, as a little vocal that we can say on the stream. Give me that mathematics. Okay, 425 minus 379. So to the 200-day is an 11% pullback in the market. So I said it in my video, but what we see is, let me see if I can redo this. So we see two places of a lot of consolidation. So we see a lot of consolidation here, and we see a lot of consolidation here. So I think once we get a bigger pullback in the market, somewhere 10 to 15%, I think these are the ranges we're going to want to look at. And so when you're saying you saw some YouTube video and someone projected 380, I definitely think that's a possibility. I just don't think yet. I think we need maybe another month or so until that potentially happens in the market. But this could be the start of a downtrend, and we'll just have to see if these trend lines hold. If we see this trend line, still break below this line, and I think more important than breaking below this trend line is, because what people don't realize, I've been charting since the COVID crash. The stock market has broke so many trend lines. Back in the day, people were like, "Oh my gosh, the S&P broke this trend line. It's gonna go back down to the bottom." Yeah, 15 points healthy correction. I agree with you. Above that, might consider reapplying for McDonald's. Comedy. But you have your JPAL shirt on, so you got luck for us. If you're in the stream, please follow the page. We do this every Sunday night, where we talk about the stock market and break down all technical analysis, and we answer your questions. So if you follow, I will do technical and fundamental charting or talking about any stock that you suggest. But going back to the SPY, every time the trend line broke, this was the first trend line that the stock broke. Actually, it was this one. And it was like, oh my gosh, the stock market's breaking down, and then it created another trend line. Oh my gosh, the stock market's breaking down, and then it created another trend line. This was a trend line where everybody was like, oh my gosh, the stock market's going back down to the all back to the COVID lows. It created another trend line. It keeps just creating more trend lines, and the angle is getting lower and lower, which makes it easier and easier for the S&P to hold that trend line. The lower the angle, the easier it is for it to hold. And so I think more important than it breaking below this is it needs to hold the downward trend line if we're going to see more of a downward movement. And so this is the first trend line we have. It doesn't really tell us much because it's such a steep angle, but this is the first trend line that we have to the downside. And we'll just have to see if this holds or not, Will this trend line hold or not? Who knows, but we'll just have to see over the next couple weeks if that holds or not. You know, and if it comes back up and breaks that, okay, let's see if it challenges the back testing this trend line before and breaks back above or not. Only thing I'm sure won't let me crash during this term, yeah. I mean, as long as he's spending that Fed money, that QE, and those low interest rates, the stock market ain't going anywhere. But if they start tapering and they start raising interest rates sooner than they thought, then we could see something different happening. But that's a lot of speculation. We'll just have to see what actually happens. So you can't predict anything. You just have to look at the facts and see what's the potential of what could happen. So, but yeah, anybody have a, let's see, is Cross still? Cross, you still in here? If so, I'll go back to PaySafe. DMA, you have any more questions about SPY? Been waiting. I haven't paid attention to the international markets much. I didn't see the Japan pulling back. That's interesting. I mean, the U.S. is such an international power, and it has so much international influence. It has so much international influence that it definitely affects other markets. That's for sure. One, because there's so much institutional, or there's so much international money in the U.S. stock market. Like, I was looking at some charts today. The U.S. is by far the largest inflows of money into ETFs than any country. Like, we're over the last 5 years, we're like tens of times larger money flowing into the ETFs than anybody else, any other country. And so there's a lot of money here, and so we definitely have an impact. Hypothetically, market was to pull back 2 to 25%. That's a big thing there. Where does he? Yeah, so I would say PaySafe. I think the SPY would impact it, and SPY and QQQ in theory should move together. But I would say PaySafe, its influence is more going to go on the movement of QQQ. And so QQQ hasn't broke below any trend lines yet, even though SPY has. And so tech is still holding up pretty well, which I was very surprised about. I was very surprised that this held up way better than I thought it was. I thought it was going to actually do worse than the S&P, but financials actually sold off, and that's what a lot of that downward momentum in the S&P came from. So we have an ascending triangle here too, so we'll have to see what happens on the QQQ. But I would say PaySafe is going to be more dependent on is going to be more dependent on the performance of the triple Qs because it's a tech company. So we'll have to see here if QQQ actually outperforms S&P 500 and continues to move upwards, then, you know, I think in the short term, PaySafe could stay where it's at or see maybe a little bit of positive movement. But if we talk about long term, in terms of a 20 to 25% pullback, PaySafe for sure will pull all back more. 100% it's going to come back. Obviously, that's not what you want to hear, but yeah, if the market sees a 20-25% pullback, PaySafe will for sure pull back, and it will definitely go under the $10 price range. The only potential for it not to break below $10 is if we do see some positive direction in the stock market, say over the next month, the QQQ breaks out even more, and we start seeing it go like this a little bit, and say that might be a little higher than it could potentially go. But say PaySafe goes up to, it looks like there's a lot of resistance around 13 to 15. Say it goes somewhere between 13 and $15, and we see a 25% pullback. This might come back to $10 as a low, but if we continue to see this go sideways for a little bit, and when August comes, we see say a 10 to 20% pullback, then PaySafe is definitely going lower. And because it basically has an all-time low of $10, we don't really know how low it could go. But PaySafe for sure will go lower if the market goes lower, 100%. Oh, thanks for coming by, Randy. Appreciate it. Always checking in on us, so I appreciate it. No hard feelings if you gotta go. Hey, Kroos, real quick, if you're liking the content, please follow the page. I'll be here every Sunday. And go to Chill Deal Trades YouTube channel. Check out my content there. A lot of good videos. And Kroos with the follow. You the man, Kroos _ So I think if this continues to consolidate sideways and we see a market correction, then it could for sure go lower. Data Vision, what up, Data Vision? I'm gonna finish up on a couple points on PaySafe real quick, and then I'll get to those stocks. Currently using it as a hedge. Yeah, bro, I don't even know if I can help you with the GME. I'll show you one negative to GME. But some of the positives I like about PaySafe as I'm finishing this up, we have $4 billion of institutional buying this quarter, which means institutions like this. It's very unlikely that at this point institutions will be selling out of $4 billion that they put in this stock. It's very unlikely. There might be some people who like, I don't want this investment anymore. But even if it say cuts in half, we still have $100.5 billion in institutional ownership. And quarters moving forward, if the stock goes lower, I can almost guarantee that there'll be more buyers unless we get into a bear market, which is pretty unlikely in the short term. So that's one thing I like, a lot of institutional buying. The valuation is not as favorable to me personally. It's at just about an $8 billion valuation, and it does about a $2 billion a year. And I don't know if this is correct because they just went public, but we're not seeing much growth year over year, which is not a great sign. You know, 2019, you would think they would have grown in 2020, but they didn't with all the e-commerce happening, all the gaming happening, all the online payment processing. So that's not a great sign. I definitely believe in they say they're going to get into like the digital wallet space and kind of what PayPal's doing a little bit in some capacity. So I like that for them. If they can grow that part of their business, that's going to be a really big positive. And I think if they can continue to get more in the e-gaming space or gambling, whatever it is, I think that can be a really big winner for them on the revenue side. So I would want to see this revenue grow significantly in 2021, and we'll have to see in the next couple quarters if we're starting to see some quarter over quarter growth or not. Because right now it's not that great. But like I said, this is a long-term play for me. I think long-term we're going to see some growth out of them. They have good management. There's some people who are, I would say, long-term business people who have grown a lot of companies successful, and so that's a positive. The net income is not so great. Obviously, they're still not making money. Annually, they're not even making money. They're still losing almost $150 million a year on $2 billion revenue. That's not a great sign. I think they have more cash in this. I don't think this is correct, but they're definitely going to probably need some more cash if they're continuing this burn. So hopefully they don't dilute, but that could definitely be a possibility if the stock breaks lower. Okay, who came in here and asked about some stocks? Data Vision, you still here, bro? Data Vision, Data Vision, are you here? Data Vision. If you're not, then I'm not gonna cover. Oh, there you go, yo. What stock? You named a bunch of them. Which one do you most want me to cover? As you put that in the chat. The last thing Kroos on the right stock. Data Vision, which of those do you want me to cover first? You put 3 of them. So one thing I don't like about GME is Data Vision's telling me which stock is this. People have cashed out on this GME run, which is not a great sign. You almost have $2 billion of selling. They've almost never had that much selling in a stock. $2 billion is a wild level. So that's the only thing that's worrisome on GME, but I'm going to move on from GME. That was my only 2 notes. I'm not really about the meme stock game. That's not really my investment strategy. So I don't really talk about them much. The fundamentals are all over the place for those companies because they've been pushed so high, and it's really hard to know what's going to happen with them outside of just the internet. Continue to short squeeze them. Okay, Neo, we'll go over Neo, we'll go over the fundamentals first. So, Data Vision, if you like what you hear, please give the page a follow and or sub. We would love that. We're here every Sunday night, so come back next Sunday as well. And my YouTube channel, Chilled Trades, got a lot of good content up there. I'll actually be putting out a video probably shortly on XPEV, which is another Chinese electric car company I like. But go check out that YouTube channel, a lot of good content. Please subscribe to that as well. So, one, I'm super bullish on Chinese EV for a couple reasons. The first reason is China is really creating, I would say, like a middle class and upper middle class in their economy, which I think is going to be a really beneficial. PaySafe. I just covered PaySafe, bro. Yeah, I'm into the crypto scene. I have a couple good videos on my YouTube channel on crypto. A lot of people aren't talking about, so I would watch those. There's some good content there. But Data Vision, I'm gonna call you DV. Sorry, ZIU. I just covered PaySafe. I'm not gonna cover it a third time. You can go back and watch the video and see what I talked about PaySafe. I think some good analysis. Ask Kroos though. Kroos, did you like that analysis on PaySafe or no? So I'm super bullish on Chinese EV in the long term. Like I said, their middle class is developing, which I think is going to be really beneficial. Go back on the stream, YouTube, Facebook. Either when I finish, I think you can go back in the stream, like go back a half an hour and you'll see me talking about PaySafe. If you can't, I'll be done in the next 45 minutes. And so you can watch back the stream after. I talk about PaySafe twice, so you got double the do-oness. Gotcha, I'll do it after Neo. So yeah, so I like the formation of the middle upper class. Thanks for the sub, appreciate it. Or the follow. If you do got a free sub, Amazon Prime, you know what to do. But yeah, I think that's going to be really beneficial for the EV space in Asia. Thank you for the follow, Professor S. Besso. Thank you, Data Vision. Appreciate it. You awesome. Go follow my YouTube channel too. I'm on a track to 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And when I get 100 subscribers, I'll be picking one random person to teach technical analysis on a Zoom call. So go subscribe there too. But yeah, so I really like China long term for EV space. It's already blowing up a lot, and I think their middle class is going to help that, their upper middle class, which is forming in their country. Obviously, Neo's going into Europe, which I think is a really big positive for them. But they're going to have equal amount of competition coming out of Asia, which is going to be rough because Tesla obviously is there. XPEV, which is another Chinese EV, is also going to be breaking out into Europe soon. They've kind of mentioned that in the last couple weeks. And so those are a couple things. They're going to have a lot of competition in Europe. One of the most positive things that is going to help the Chinese EV companies in Asia is that the Chinese government is basically not giving tax incentives to Tesla, and they're not giving people who buy Teslas aren't getting a tax credit. You have to buy a Chinese EV car company to get tax credit. And so that's going to be really bullish for the growth of Neo and XPEV in Asia. Very, and specifically China, but if other Asian countries kind of do a similar thing, then that could be very bullish, but probably just China will do that. So yeah, obviously they've had ridiculous growth. I don't know how long you've been following Neo, but when Neo at the beginning of Code was at $5 a share, they almost went bankrupt. With the subscribe, yo, bruh. I don't know who you is, but you're awesome for the subscribe, bro. I really appreciate that. You are the best. You think so one thing, go to my Chilled Trades YouTube channel. I literally just put out a 15-minute video on if the market's gonna crash or not. I think a correction is more realistic, but go watch that YouTube video. And I just did technical analysis on SPY. So go back and watch this video back afterwards and watch that technical analysis on SPY on where I think the short-term and long-term pullbacks will be. Crash is very unrealistic with how much QE is in the system, as well as how low interest rates are. We're going to need a significant change in those two specific things from the Fed for the market to crash. And they're not showing any signs of doing that soon. But NIO obviously has had insane growth, 400% growth from almost going bankrupt last year. I think it was the quarter before this, almost going bankrupt in January of 2020, to like growing almost 500% year over year. That's insane. Part of the issue with both NIO and XPEV is for getting this growth, they're spending a ridiculous amount of money. So I would have to actually go into their balance sheet and their finances to see where they're spending money. But my best guess is they're spending a lot of money to get people to buy their cars, because there's a lot of competition. So they're having to get that car in front of more people than somebody else's, which I think could be an issue for them to decrease this net income loss. I think it's good that they're growing. Annually, what are they at now? 16 billion annually. Their market cap's at 65. That's not terrible, but it's not great that they're still EBITDA negative, or net income is negative when they have 16 billion in revenue. That's not a great sign for their company. If we start seeing a change where they're actually starting to make money, like they haven't made any money yet, and this last quarter was humongous. I don't know why March 2021 was humongous, but that's not a great sign. They're going to need to start making money for this $76 billion valuation to be realistic to me. Wait, why is this in US dollars, but this is in a different currency? That's silly. I'm not sure what the valuation is not in US dollars. That's kind of annoying that Google does that. But let me see if I can bring up their valuation somewhere else, because that's not helpful. But yeah, regardless, not making a lot of money is not good. They need to make money to validate the valuation that's on the company. When we look at the, and this is one, we'll look at institutional ownership. This is one of the reasons I'm way more bullish on XPEV, is because people have been selling out of NIO recently. I don't know why. I'm not sure, because when we look at XPEV, which is also a Chinese EV name, we see the opposite happening. So that makes me feel that I'm still bullish on Chinese EV, but I'm kind of confused why XPEV has 1.5 billion institutional buying this last quarter, but NIO has almost 3.5 billion of selling this last quarter. So that's the only negative I have on NIO, is institutions are starting to sell, which starts to wave a red flag to me. And I would definitely look into who's selling. Like, is some of their foundational institutions selling? Are people just trimming small positions? Like, where's that really large decrease in institutions selling coming from? That's something that you're going to want to dig in a little deeper into. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure the reason why. So that's definitely a red flag. Let's go to the charts, since I covered everything else. Again, appreciate the sub, man. That's super awesome of you. I don't know if you know us or not, if you're just some random person that found us, but that's super nice of you. Let's change this chart to NIO. See how NIO is looking. So NIO chart looks pretty similar to XPEV. I know XPEV's chart way better because I am or was a holder of that. But positive here is we're still holding the more recent uptrend, which is a positive sign. Let's make two trend lines to make this more fun. So we have one steeper trend line, and then we have one steeper trend line, which we're on the verge of holding. So this is what I would be looking at. What are these? Okay, 100-day, 200-day. So we also broke above the 100-day and 200-day on this move forward. So that's super bullish. That could be potentially showing a trend reversal for this stock, but we're going to want to hold it above the 100-day and 200-day. For anyone listening, when the 100-day and 200-day are above the stock, it's in a bearish pattern. So as this downtrend was happening, we saw these two go above the current price and kind of showing downwards. But what we're seeing is these starting to flatten out a little bit. And so that's kind of a positive indicator that one, it's either leveling off here and will accumulate, or the SMAs are going to start moving upwards. And as soon as they have this upward momentum in the trend lines, what you can see is the stock moves up. As soon as these tilt over, the stock goes down. So that's the relationship between SMAs and stock price, or EMAs, whatever you use. Generally speaking, that's what they follow. Let's see if there's any, let's see what other downward trend lines we're still going to be struggling against. I think that's the only one that we're going to be looking for. Yeah, we're most likely not going to come back down and back test this anytime. Let's look for some resistance points. So actually, let's do one more thing. Let's trawl a channel to see if we have a channel forming or not. Not really. We'll get rid of that drawing. That's not helpful. If anybody has questions as I'm charting, please let me know. Thank you for everyone being here. Please follow if you're finding any value from what I'm doing. That would be amazing. If you have a sub that you want to give us, that'd be even cooler. And please go follow me at my YouTube channel, Chillville Trades, where I break down everything in the stock market. So I'm going to be looking at, first we have these two trend lines are eventually going to meet if the stock price gets that high. So that's up at 54 bucks. It's not that far away. That's only $8 away, $7 away, which isn't too bad. That's not too far away. So, and we also have this kind of resistance area up here. You know, there's a little bit of accumulation. So we can kind of see these kind of meet here. So we see some big resistance. So whenever you see a gap up, if it breaks back below, that's going to be a really important resistance in the future. And we can see here it tried to break out, couldn't decide here, came back down, and then it finally broke out. And so if the stock gets this high, this is out in July. Okay, this is hilarious, everyone listening. So I've been charting a bunch of things lately, and what I've been seeing on every chart is the downward trend line, mostly tech, the downward trend line and the upward trend line are meeting at July in every single chart that I've been charting over the last 2 weeks. So that's why my theory for the overall markets is I think we're going to see a downtrend. I could be wrong, but we're going to, in mid-July, the market is going to, late July, the market's going to have a decision point if it wants to go higher or lower. And so it will be interesting to see. But around 54 looks like it's pretty important range. Let's see if we have any consolidation zones. So looks like we kind of have a consolidation zone there. So we could potentially see some, it looks like we're trying to break, yeah, we were trying to break out of this range here. As you can see, it broke out above this resistance, came back down, tested the trend line. Let me go a little closer. So obviously the breakdown was pretty big, tried to break out, couldn't, downward, came up, broke above. So if you're owning the stock and it's not a long-term hold, then I would probably put a stop loss somewhere below this trend line and this trend line. So if this is a short-term trade, I would say somewhere around, oh man, this is hard actually. This is hard to set a stop loss because there's so many points of support as well. But definitely a break of this area is where I would put, if you're doing short-term trading, I would put a stop loss somewhere around this zone if it's a short-term trade. If it's a long-term trade, don't worry about it, but short-term trade, if it breaks below these, that could potentially push it a bit lower. Let me see where the 50-day is to see if we see any relation between the 50-day and the 200-day. Okay, so what do we have here? Which line is which line? The dark line is the 50-day. Okay, this is a little strange. So this is considered a death cross when the 200-day goes above the 50-day, and that typically means the stock's going lower, but it's weird that it actually ended up going higher off this. So we're gonna have to see if the 50-day breaks back above the 200-day or not. If this can't break back above the 200-day, this is kind of telling me that the stock could go lower. But if the 50-day breaks above the 200-day, then I think we could come up closer to this 54 range. But it looks like it wants to make a decision right now. It wants to decide if it wants to break above this consolidation range or not right here. So yeah, it looks like NIO's making a decision right now. And yeah, I don't see a lot of, I mean, I guess it kind of looks like somewhere between, looks like there's a bit of resistance here as well. We have this area of resistance, this area, and then this area. So it seems like the 51 to 54 price range, if it continues to go higher, is a potential price target. If we somehow just see the S&P or the NASDAQ just break all-time highs and just start going crazy to the upside, the stock could break above that. But I'd be looking for this zone as a potential top. But that's also my bias because I think we're going to have a small 10% correction sometime out in end of July, August, September range. So that's some analysis on NIO. Any other questions on that data vision before I move on? That got super intense and deep, but are you still here? Yeah, you're still here. Data vision, data vision. Ooh, hang loose. You from Hawaii? Yeah, man. That's more Jamaican. That was very interesting of me. But hang loose. I like that. Okay. What other stock did you put on here? Oh, AMD. I like AMD. AMD is a really cool company. I like them a lot long term. They're a long term buy. Short term, I don't know if I have a whole lot of no questions. I must did a good job, Vision. I think that deserves a subscribe if you have one free for us. But that's just me speaking. Let's look at AMD. I'm just bringing up some stuff on the other side real quick. AMD. Excuse me. Okay, let's go over to the fundamentals. Ooh, I got the hiccup. Oops. Okie dokie. Here we go, artichoke. I just had to send a quick texties. But yeah, AMD, I love the company. I have an AMD video card in my computer. I've always loved Nvidia, is that how you say it? Nvidia more, but my AMD works pretty well, and they've got a lot of hype over the last couple of years, or probably the last year, with them coming out with what is it, like 5 meter, I can't remember the thing, but coming out with video cards that Intel hasn't been able to create, and Intel's like one of the largest, so they're showing some positivity in their innovation, which I think is a really great sign for the company. So in order for companies to keep growing as AMD has, they have to innovate, and they have to come out with the next best thing, and have great teams and leadership that can make that happen. And so I think that's one of the most positive. I think I have like a 590Z in my computer or something, which works pretty well. And so yeah, I really like their products. I think they're getting better and better, um, and we'll have to see if they can continue to do that because that's going to be the most important thing because this industry is extremely competitive. You have Nivea, which is probably the biggest out there, Intel, which is having some struggle but still in there, TSM. There's a lot of big players that, and they're all kind of competing for the same people, for the most part. But I mean, when you look at both their annual and quarterly results, like they're amazing. Obviously, 2020 had some hiccups for them in terms of their net income. You know, their or wait, no, net income's positive, larger there. My bad. That's quarterly. Let's go annually. Annually. So 2020 was a great year because, I mean, it was just a side effects of a lot of things. Obviously, video games became really big because everyone was home all the time, so more people were buying them. Crypto mining is a big thing right now, so a lot of sales for that. So you had year over year growth explode, and you also saw net income explode quite a bit as well. Oh, also Data Vision. I forgot one thing about NEO. I just remembered they have a really big cash position. They have like 28 billion in cash, which is really good for them long term, as they can continue to finance their growth, which is a good sign. They've raised a lot of money, which is really smart for them. That's a side note. But yeah, I love AMD long term. Let's see what their valuation. So they're 100 billion market cap, and they have about 9 billion a year. Obviously, that's a little rich. Their P ratio is 35, not terrible. 35 is not too bad. Um, I think the whole market's a little rich, so that kind of is in line with how the overall market is. So nothing too worrisome there, in my opinion. Um, if you've been here, yeah, that was I think it's Data Vision. If you've been here or you just popped in, I've been saying that I think the market, is going to have a pullback sometime in the next couple months. So that's something to think about with all these tech names. Is they've been running really hot. We'll look at the chart in a moment, but they've been running really hot. The people who've owned them for years, people who invested in 2017 and 18, at this point they got to be thinking if they want to hold on this anymore or not, or if they want to sell out of half of their positions. These are things that I think the big boys are starting to think about, and so that's something to consider when you're making this investment. Data. When did you buy this stock? Have you been holding it for a while? I'm just curious for that perspective. But yeah, they're making money, they're growing, and their net income is increasing, which is really great because that means their margins are growing, and larger margins is really great because they make more money, and it's a win-win for them right now, even though their valuation might be a little expensive. So let's look at institutional ownership. So this is what I've been seeing in some of these stocks that have made pretty crazy runs, is we are seeing institutions taking some profit. So it's not a huge red flag because, like, basically since the beginning of 2020, people have been buying more than selling for the most point. Beginning of the year, beginning of this year. Okay, we'll look at the chart, what price that was. I think they're up from that point though. So you're probably in an okay spot. What's your average cost? But yeah, so they've had a lot of buying for basically the last year and a half, 2 years. And so 1/4 of a lot of selling isn't a red flag yet, but it's something to pay attention to, that there are people taking profits and they're most likely putting that money somewhere else. Who knows what they're putting that money in, but they might be putting it in something else. So people might start thinking that this stock is a little expensive. When we look at how much, 4 billion, there must be like one person who sold out of a position because that's a really big amount. Where's the red at? 45, 30. Yeah, I'm not seeing, I don't know where this big sell is because that's someone must have just cashed out somewhere. I'm not going to go through every institutional buying because there's so many. But these guys reduced their position pretty significantly. Price T. What we can do, actually, I just remembered, shares held. So yeah, these guys reduced their position pretty significantly, and that was basically most of the selling. So just one company, one institution reduced a big position, which isn't, when you look at it that way, it's not as of a red flag, because you're not seeing a ton of people liquidating their positions. You just see one company pull out a lot. These guys obviously pulled out. These guys lowered their position quite a bit, but you also have a lot of buying, in the last few months. So somebody really reduced their position, but not a total red flag. But start thinking about, if we see this institution selling continue to increase, then it's something to consider. Let's go ahead and look at the technicals, because that's probably what you're waiting for anyway. Okay. Let's do a long-term chart. When was January? So you bought in January? Oh, you are down on the year. Bummer. Okay, let's see how they're looking. Obviously, there's been a lot of positive. It basically got not short squeezed, but it got squeezed higher. There's like a bunch of news that came out about shortages and how people are getting super bullish on semiconductor companies, and like the shortage is going to lead to them continue to get more and more revenue, and they're charging more for their things, so their revenue should be going up in theory. But let's look at a long-term trend line to see how this chart is looking. Let's just do some quick charting. Any other questions you have as I'm charting about on the fundamental side or anything like that? Because this part is just me pressing my mouse for a little while until I start figuring out where things are. Okay, let's see how we're looking on the downtrend line. Okay, we broke out of the downward trend line. Let's see the secondary downward trend line. Okay, so we're testing it right now. Okay, so let me see here. Let me do one more thing, because I see something on the chart. I think I see something. I think I see a trading range with which the stock might have went back into. Let's see. Yeah, there's kind of a trading range. This might be wrong, but kind of a trading range. Let's see if we have a trading range to the downside, because I've been seeing that a lot in the stock market lately. Not really. It's kind of BS, but looks like a head and shoulders. Good call out. You should be doing this video. But yeah, so let me actually get rid of these, because then I can't see the SMAs. Okay, so kind of like we looked at NEO, the first negative is at the 50-day cross below 200-day. So golden cross is what it's called. And so we're going to need these lines to cross back the opposite way. Because what this is telling me is when the 200-day gets around above the price, or if the price can't break above the 200-day, that's telling me that it might be starting a long-term downward movement. But if we see the stock break above the 200-day, we see the 50-day break back above the 200-day, then we've continued our bullish movement to the upside. Spoofer, you the man. Thanks for the follow. If you got another second, go to my YouTube channel and hit a follow on there too. That would be pretty awesome of you. Let me put it in the chat real quick. You would be a goat if you followed me on there as well. But yeah, so it's what we can see here is it's testing the 200-day. So I think this is the stock determining or figuring out if it wants to go higher and if it wants to continue this bullish trend, which you kind of see this trend line here is to the upside. So that's going to be really important, is if we can hold this upward momentum or not for this stock. Let's just draw a second trend line for the hell of it. It's basically the same thing. So yeah, so we're kind of testing this potential breakout. If we say breakout here, we'll most likely see this 50-day SMA, MA, go back above the 200-day and start correct itself, but that's what you're going to want to look out for, a long-term bias on the stock. But if we still stay in this weekly, is there something for you want me to see on the weekly chart? See what the weekly says? I mean, okay, this is the only issue I have with weekly charts is when we're looking at SMAs is the stock market's had the most ridiculous run, and especially tech names. So on the weekly chart, we see a huge gap between the 200-day and basically any other SMA, especially the shorter ones like the 8, the 50, another more short 20-day, some of the more popular ones. You see really big gaps between those. So I don't like using the weekly day for SMAs on these stocks that have made crazy runs because all of them look bullish. Anything that's moved up looks extremely bullish. And the daily chart, obviously the weekly chart trumps the daily chart, but we got to start looking in the short term, intermediate term, is there a trend reversal happening? And if that's happening, then we can potentially see the chart start moving lower. I don't know where the let's take a look. Yeah, it's testing the 50-day right now too, so we'll have to see if it holds the 50-day on the weekly. That's going to be a more important mark. If we say the 100-day, let's see how far away it is from the price. So if we see a correction, I would be looking for around the 100-day. What's really hard about this stock is the crazy movement that it saw to the upside. So yeah, so this isn't looking great. The 100-day turned over to the downside, which is kind of pushing some downward momentum. What's up with the broader markets? S&P all fall, but bond yields going lower. What does that mean? Snake. It's a great question. It's super confusing. I actually covered this last week a little bit, last Sunday. So please follow, subscribe if you have a Twitch, subscribe to Prime, whatever. Oh, he followed on YouTube. That's not Twitch. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube. What? Subscribe. Okay, Snake. I see you just rolling up in here and just dropping the sub like that. Bruh. I'll get to that question in just a moment. But let me post. I just posted a video on Chill Deal Trades YouTube channel, and I covered S&P, and I kind of go up against what Michael Burry or whatever his name is saying about how he thinks there's a stock crash, and I kind of give the pros and cons, or the parts that say that the stock market could move lower, and the aspects that say that the stock market's not ready for a crash, and then I give some technical analysis on the S&P 500. So yeah, go look at that, and then you can watch last week's stream on Twitch still. Outman, thanks. Thanks, Data Vision. I hope that was enough information for you. It does seem like there's some downward bias if it can't break above these SMAs and continue higher. But yeah, just look at those, kind of draw some trend lines on your chart and kind of see where those could potentially go. That would be my advice. Keep a track of those SMAs and keep track of these trend lines and how they interact with each other. Yeah, Snake. Go to that YouTube video, check that out. I think there's a lot of good information about the more broader macro perspective on the market. And then last week on Sunday, Subscriber Sunday is what I call this, is I also cover some of the more technical parts of the market, like TLT, kind of seeing how that has been moving up and down based on how the market's been performing, PE ratios and how that interacts with CPI, things like that. So that'd be a good video to watch, last Sunday's video on Twitch as well. But thanks, I'm going to check it out on YouTube. Enjoy the sub. Appreciate it, Snake, man. That's super awesome of you. Is there any stocks? I mean, you sub, so you get a cut to the front of the line, honestly. Is there any stocks you want me to cover? If not, I'll cover the S&P again. Even though I just did it like 15 minutes ago. Adobe. That's how you know you've been trading too long, when I just see a ticker name and I know what company it is. Do you want the fundamental or technical or both? Because I can do whatever one works better for you. Technical, gotcha. Okay, bring that up. Let's go Okay, they've had a crazy run this last month. I haven't been following them closely, so I'm not too sure what prompted that crazy move to the upside. Do you have any data points on that? It sounds like you own the stock, so you might have some better input on why it made that crazy move. I know that Adobe's been people have been talking about Adobe a lot lately in the news, which makes me less bullish on it. Whenever I see CNBC talk about a stock a lot, I instantly say that's not a stock I want to buy right now. I'm not sure. I don't own. Gotcha. I'm just a gambler that bought some puts last week. Your puts, you might have got a little lucky there. So the first thing off the bat I'm looking at is RSI. So RSI has just hit overbought territory. So let's see what happened every time RSI has reached overbought on the daily chart. Let's highlight all three of these. This is probably doing too much, but let's take a peek. Okay, so if we draw lines up to every time it got overbought, what are we seeing? Okay, first thing we see is that on every time it reaches overbought, it sells off. That's the first thing we want to look at. I don't know if there's anything fundamentally. That's something that you'd probably want to look at, is if there's any crazy news that came out about them that would make them push higher. If there's any momentum type things that can keep the stock moving higher, is something that you would want to look at. But what I'm seeing right now is the last 2 times that it hit overbought territory, really the last 3 times. There's actually a third one here. The last 3 times it reached overbought, the stock sold off pretty hard. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again, but history often rhymes with the future. It doesn't always do the same thing, but it's often pretty close. So obviously overbought on RSI, overbought. We see a big sell-off there. Big sell-off there. Yeah, bro, never look at analysts. Analysts are a bunch of dumbasses. They honestly use price targets to manipulate the market more than what they actually believe. Of my 8 years of trading, when I first started trading, I also got baited into the analyst talk. I would follow it all the time on these penny stocks that I traded when I first started trading, and that's how I lost a lot of money, is listening to what analysts said. Because what happened was they gave a rating as soon as the stock broke out to the upside. All the technicals said it was not a buy yet, or it was too overbought to buy at that moment. And then what I ended up doing was bought, the stock went lower, I got scared, I sold out, and then in 12 months the stock was higher. So analysts, I don't ever listen to them. But based on this RSI reading just off the cuff, every time it hits oversold, it sells off. So we kind of have a double head fake here. I think that what price action happening more mimics what happened here. So what we see here is we see one, let me zoom in a little bit more. We see one RSI to the top, we see it move here, and then we see a second peak in the RSI. So what this is called is divergence. So divergence on the RSI basically means we see snake with the follow to. Okay, do everything snake. If you want to make it a trifecta, go follow me on Chill Deal Trades. That would be GOAT. That's GOAT worthy right there. But basically when we see the RSI see a downward movement, so right now, actually let me use a past example, it's going to be a better one for this. So RSI is going down, but the stock's going up. So RSI is pointing this way technically, but stock is pointing this way. That's divergence, and that typically means the stock's going to be heading lower sometime soon. And so here we saw it break out, we saw a second breakout to overbought, and then it actually went higher, and then it sold off. Here the same thing, we see the price go up. Let me zoom in a little bit more. We see the price go up, overbought. We see it come down a little bit. We see it pop up higher for some reason. Some news probably came out, is my guess. And then we see the RSI not get as high, so that could potentially signal the stock coming a little bit lower in the near future. We're at all-time highs, so who knows where the stock goes from here. We don't have any upward resistance, and so it's hard to predict where the price could go outside of technicals. But if the stock were to come back, because you have a put on it, I would say the first, let's see, actually I'm going to go 4-hour chart to see what we're seeing here. Okay, this is better on the 4-hour. So yeah, way overbought. That's a bearish sign in the short term, as in terms of more downward momentum. This gap fill probably needs to close. So I would say these are probably the two scenarios. Is the stock either comes down, closes the gap, and then consolidates some and figures out what it wants to do next, or I made two lines, or this Friday. What's your expiration date on the put? This Friday? Okay, short term. That's a really short one. So what's hard with the really short, you must have had a pretty high premium on that. What's hard about short-term puts on larger tech companies is their price action typically isn't as violent to the downside, or it takes longer for it to move upwards or downwards, typically speaking, except when news comes out and it gets pumped higher. And so if you want to sell it before your expiration. But what we're seeing on the chart is it's either going to come down, fill that gap and consolidate, and you'll probably be in, you might be on the green at that point, or it's going to come down, fill the gap, come back up, test the trend line, and then probably come down to the 535 range, because that's where we have the breakout of all-time high. Those are two scenarios. Absolutely strike price. So that's two scenarios. Where this chart gets a little more bullish is that we had a back test. So a back test is a stock breaks out of all-time high, it comes back, tests the all-time high, and breaks higher, and that's really bullish. So if it can hold above this all-time high of 536, then the stock might come down, test this trend line, and or test the gap, and then kind of do this maybe into July. That could be another scenario. Ooh, about 8 of them. Going hard in the paint, Snake. So since you have a short, do you see about a call or a put? It's a put, right? Yeah. Since you have a short time put. Since you have a put on this for the short term, this is that short term price. Those three scenarios is the short term price action I would be looking for. It's probably going to be one of those scenarios, in my opinion. So that's what I would be looking for. I'm thinking it will pay off because the broader market is falling. Yeah, this week's going to be really interesting because the NASDAQ held up last week, and Adobe's a tech company more than it is like a S&P company name. So even though it's probably in both indexes, it's probably both in the SPY and the NASDAQ, but I think the NASDAQ might have more impact on this. And so if we see the NASDAQ break down, this could definitely break down this week a little bit. And you're definitely right. I want to sell Monday or Tuesday. Gotcha. Okay, super short. Holmes with the perspective. Holmes just been sitting back here observing. I see you. So yeah, short term that makes sense. Watch for the gap fill. Yeah, I think the futures were down a little bit. I don't know how much they were down. When I checked, it was like just a little bit, but that was a couple hours ago. It was down like 50 cents. Oh yeah, it pulled back a little bit more. Yeah, we'll see next week. I have a put on the Nasdaq, so I'm hoping the Nasdaq follows the SPY and pulls back next week, but we'll see. Ben is joining the stream, bro. Been a good one tonight. I agree, Holmes. We've been firing through the stocks this week. It's been pretty fire. I definitely agree. I think all the stocks that people have been asking about have led to a really great stream. And like I said, we do this every Sunday. So if you're here and you haven't subscribed yet to the Twitch, that would be amazing. Also follow us. To give you more context, we're a channel that both games and talks about stocks. So Wednesday nights, we just play video games and hang out with you guys and play video games with everyone who follows the channel. And then Saturday nights at 7 p.m. on West Coast time, we talk about the stock market while we play video games. And we won't talk about more macro topics, so things that we can all have a perspective on. We don't really dive into the technicals, because that's what Sunday's for. Sundays we dive into the technicals of all the charts, see how things are looking, see how the market's looking. That's kind of what we want to do. I don't want to control your stream, but have you talked about Tesla already? I haven't talked about Tesla, but I can. Nope, no Tesla. Holmes, bro. I'm liking this interaction, bro. When we see people interact a lot, they are rewarded. So we might just have to throw a VIP your way if we see you pop on later this week as well. Let's go ahead and look at Tesla. As a company, I think they're crazy overvalued. If anything, in the long term, I think they'll consolidate for a while. I personally don't think that they're going to push above their all-time high. The only way they could do that is if the Nasdaq goes on a crazy tear. There might be they might get some of the lift from the Nasdaq breaking all-time highs and going on a tear, but I doubt that they're going to break above all-time highs at this point. Their valuation is stupid. Investors priced in growth way too far down the line, and eventually that's going to catch up. So see, they consolidate for a couple years as their sales grow and they catch up to their valuation, or they pull back and find a middle ground with where their valuation is. But let's just stick to technical analyses. The first thing I want to check on is if they have any channel forming. Not really. Yeah, not really a channel. Let's draw some trend lines. You're not taking over the stream also, Snake. No one else called out a stock, so you called out the next stock. That means we're covering the next stock. It's a free market here on Stock Talk Game. Free market. Okay, short-term pros and cons. I don't want the 4-hour chart. I want the daily. Okay. So on the daily chart, still looks bullish when it comes to the SMAs. So we have the 200-day below the 100-day, which is bullish. Okay, yeah, Holmes. You'll be next once we finish Tesla up. Just write that question in the chat. So there's some positive fundamental things happening for the long term on the daily chart. Obviously, the stock has a crazy run, so that's obviously. Let's draw a little trendy line here. Let's draw that. Let's draw one more to see if we have anything else interesting happening on the long term. So the reason, everyone, I draw both more long-term and short-term trend lines is the longer the trend line, the more influence it has. The shorter the trend line, the less influence it has. And that's because the more times the price hits a trend line, the more influence it has. That's just a really simple way to think about it. So move this a little bit. I'm going to be super particular. Okay, so it looks like we have a couple upward trend lines. We've broke below 1, which is not exactly a true trend line. The longer the stronger. Okay, you said it way better than I did. I need to keep that one for myself. Thanks, Holmes. But super long term, this kind of trend line we've broke below, so that's obviously not a great sign. Snake lol. So that's obviously not a great sign. But we kind of have this secondary trend line that's formed that we've held against, and it bounced off it a couple times. So that's technically a positive. We just broke above this more short-term trend line. I think we have another trend line as well. Nope, it's basically the same. We have broke below this more short-term trend line, which is a positive, and I think that's kind of why we've seen this upward momentum. See if it could test it. Tested it, broke out. So I think we're gonna have to watch for. Where's my little circle? We're gonna have to watch for this price range right here, which is at 628. So 628, which is basically I think where the price is right now. So that's gonna be the first point we're gonna want to look for. From what I can see, it kind of looks like it might be forming a very short upwards channel potentially. Let's see if we're seeing something here. Too early to tell, but we'll have to see if this kind of comes up and tests the top of this range of this new channel and see if that forms or not. Let's draw some more trend lines so we can understand if it goes lower or higher. That's way too far away. So that's interesting. It did. Whenever you start doing technical, you start drawing your trend lines, like the world just makes sense. Like obviously there was a ton of support right here, and the stock basically bounced off that support. Facts, man. Technical analysis is just facts. So I'd say the next, if it does trade in this channel to the upside more, then we're gonna want to see it break out above 634 and then come up and test the top of this channel. Some negative momentum is that we're seeing the 100-day start curling downwards. So when I said this earlier, but when the lines go upwards, that's bullish. When you start seeing the trend lines move downwards, that's more bearish in terms of momentum. That's more bearish is when you start seeing. I gotta see if my counterpart is still oh, appreciate it. Thanks for doing all the stock twits, Nate. So we'll have to see if it can break above this channel or test the top of the channel and kind of. I mean, honestly, if I was a Tesla owner, which I'm not, I would love a car, but the stock, I'm not. Hopefully, in your best condition, you would hope that it would hold this trend line because this is not a very steep angle, which is good for the stock. It can hold that price range, and hopefully it would do something like that. That could be very bullish. But we need to see this 100-day go like this and kind of start trending upwards if we're going to see this movement continue to go to the upside. The crash news, yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot of terror in the CNBCs and Michael Burrys of the world, and crypto and all the scare around there. So there's been a lot of scare for sure. Oh, the crash news. The crash market crash. Oh, the auto driver. Oh, yeah. I feel you, Holmes. But I know some people who own them, and I think they use the autopilot, and they feel like it's pretty safe. But I think this is what we're going to want to see with the 100-day SMA is we're going to want to see this turnovers from a downward momentum and start going positive. So if we can see the 50-day and also the 200-day kind of move upwards like that, that's going to show more upward momentum for the stock. I didn't even notice this because I had so much shit going on, but it also looks like the price is testing the 200-day right now on the daily. So if it can hold the 200-day, before it broke below, came back above. So it's kind of been challenging this 200-day for a while now, for the last month. It's kind of been challenging this 200-day. And so it needs to break above the 200-day and start moving upwards for positive momentum. If we see the stock break below, let me get my drawer again. So if we see the stock price break below 200-day and we see the 100-day go below, like this and do a cross, this would, the 200 would do more like this, and it would be more like this. If we see that happen, that's not a great sign for the stock. So it looks like Tesla is kind of in a decision moment. It's deciding what it wants to do, if it wants to head higher or lower, more in the macro sense. And we do have some. I think I just deleted my trend line. A bummer. Let me redraw that. 9%. Yeah, I know. I think they're still like, weren't they like this? They're rated like the safest car. Like out of all the vehicles, they're the safest vehicle. I think they had that rating. So obviously they're a safe car. Oh yeah, thank you for the info. I'm going to crash out so I can be, yeah. I feel you. Put your J-Pal shirt on. Somebody earlier was saying they were putting their J-Pal shirt on for good luck for the stock market. So print out a picture of J-Pal and test it on your, and put it above your bed at night, and hopefully that'll bring the market good luck. That's what we're doing here on Stock Talk Game. But yeah, thanks for subbing, man, Snake. That's really nice of you. I really appreciate that. And best of luck on those Adobe puts. And thanks for coming in. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the sub. That's super nice of you. I don't know if you followed on the YouTube channel, but thanks if you subscribe there as well. That's super nice of you, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for coming by, and hope you get some nice sleep. And in your dreams, you just see the Adobe price crash in your dreams, and then you wake up and it's down $5. So hopefully that's what your night is involved with. I'm gonna do one more. So Holmes, what was your question? This is gonna be the last one of the night, as I've been on for 2 hours. I think that's a pretty good night. 2 hours. I'll leave it to Holmes. What is your question, sir? You're just gonna stay up till pre-market? That's pretty savage. But why not, man? Go for it. The 3-8 trap strategy for trading. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Let me look it up on my computer. Is that SMAs? What are you talking about? Moving averages? 3-8 trap strategy. Yeah, I'll just watch Shark Tank till pre-market law. Position trading, 3-8 trap strategy. Yeah, oh, like EMA, yeah, it's EMAs. Okay, so you're saying, this is all speculation, but I'm assuming you're saying is if the price stays between the 3 and 8, is that what it is? Gotcha. Yeah, so more short-term trading and price action. Let me take my RSI off, and I can put the 18-day on here. Or 17. I have not used that strategy. I haven't day traded in a long time. Yeah, the bouncing back and forth, right? Yeah. I don't really day trade anymore. I did it for like a year and a half just to see if I enjoyed full-time trading, you know, waking up at 5 a.m. on the West Coast and then trading till 7 p.m. at night or whatever. I just didn't like it. It just wasn't for me. I gave it a good go, and so I was using these kind of more short-term indicators. I was using the Ichimoku cloud, whatever the hell it's called. I was using like short-term Fibonacci's a lot, things like that. But I was using VWAP a lot, things like that, more daily indicators. When the fast crosses above the 8, wait for the bounce. Okay. When the fast crosses up above the 8, wait for the bounce. Yeah. Yeah, I mostly just use Ichi to see where, like, to see a macro view, to see where in the cloud it was. if I wanted to make price action or if I wanted to make a buy on that stock or not. I'm trying to see. I haven't used this strategy, but it sounds like I know people. I know when people use shorter moving averages, it's usually like either if the price is staying between a couple of them, or if it breaks above something or holds like the 8 day, then it's like if there's bullish price action. But I haven't tried this strategy out. Let me get what color is what line. So the 3 is the dark blue. The 8 day. Gotcha. So daily candles. Yeah. Let's go 1 hour or something. What candles do you use for the 3/8? Is it more like hourly candles? Gotcha. So if this is if the 3 breaks above the 8. So here, let's give this as an example. These colors are too close. Let me change this color real quick. Like, what's what? Let's use it to red. That's easy to see. Okay, so right now we have the 3 above the 8, so that's a wait. And then if the price bounces off the 8, which it just did, then it's a buy. So I would. This is an hour candle. I don't know what candle you typically use for this strategy. If we do the 4, let's see what the 4 is telling us. So on the 4-hour candle, it looks like the 3 is above the 8, but it hasn't bounced off the 8 yet. So we're still looking for a bounce, and the 8 and the 17th are pretty close together. So if you're using a 4-hour candle, it looks like it's waiting time, but on the hourly candle, it looks like it's time to buy because it bounced off the 8. That's interesting. I'll have to watch a video on it. Thanks for bringing up the Holmes. I'll have to watch a video on that strategy. It's interesting. Holmes, if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That'd be awesome. Using a day trading. Oh, real short term. Okay. So this is like trading like a few hours trade, or maybe like an overnight trade or something. Bloodthirster. What's up, Bloodthirster? Welcome to the stream. Oh, Luster. I think I've seen you in here before, Blood, but you never said anything in the chat. I think you were here yesterday, but I didn't see you say anything. I remember there was a Blood person. Gotcha, any time frame. So I'm assuming like a 30-minute candle is more like trying to see like short-term price movement and kind of like a couple-hour trade or something. It sounds like this would be a good strategy for smaller cap companies that have a little bit more violent price action. Those are the only kind of stocks I typically day trade. I don't usually day trade Tesla stocks unless news came out or something. But that's good to know. It's a good strategy. I have to look into it some more. I know on my Thinkorswim platform I have a few more SMAs laid over, and so I'll have to try it on there and see what happens. But that's interesting. I'll have to use it on the daily because I mostly do daily charting for Sunday nights. 2-day trade. Gotcha. Intraday true trade. Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, based on this chart we're seeing on the more short term, it looks like this would be a good test to do on Monday with Tesla, because on the short term, I think the hour chart, we bounced off the 8-day. So I'm curious to see if Tesla moves up or not. That'd be interesting for a little day trade tomorrow, tomorrow. But everyone who's in here, I appreciate you. For everyone who stuck around the whole time, you guys are great. Thanks for tuning in for this week's Subscriber Sunday. It's low risk because where you set your stop loss. Gosh, you set your stop loss below this 8 or 17. That makes sense. So super, super tight stop loss. Gotcha. But yeah, I'm going to end it there for the day. I really appreciate everyone stopping by and hanging out. I hope you got some value from everything we covered today in the stock market. If you're here, and if you would, go and follow my YouTube channel, Chill Deal Trades. That would be amazing. I'm trying to get to 100 subs on there. I think, personally, I'm biased, but I think I have killer content on there, and content that other people don't do don't really do as much as I do, in terms of detail and different perspective on things. So I would love if you guys could follow that. That'd be amazing. But that's gonna call it tonight. Thank you everyone for stopping by. Everyone who's followed, I appreciate it so much. The sub we got, appreciate that so much. We'll be back on Wednesday night for just gaming. So if you want to come by Wednesday, and if you play video games, come game with us. Or if you just want to watch us, come watch us. Saturday nights at 7 on the West Coast time. This is something you might like, Holmes, because we talk a lot about a lot of macro things. So we typically talk about like how overall markets are doing, specific news that happen in the market and what the implications could be for both the stock market and the economy, as well as just have some fun gaming. And then Sundays you guys are here, just stock talk. And so, yep, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. You guys have an awesome week. Hopefully you make some money in the markets. And I'll see you guys all again soon. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.